Welcome to Ion Franchising, where you will learn the A to Z's of franchising. Well, welcome back, everyone, to another amazing episode of Ion Franchising. I'm your host, Lance Graulich, and today, yes, there is going to be a fabulous episode, and you'll learn all about this amazing brand that we'll talk about just in one moment. So let's do the intros. The first gentleman I'm going to intro, yes, I have a cheat sheet. I can't memorize all this anymore. He is a home services veteran. He's done things like tree pruning, tree business, tree removal, decks, landscape, light carpentry. He's not that talented. He's married, and he married his high school sweetheart. You gotta love that. And they have two. Well, they don't have two. They have twin boys. That's assumed as two. Difficult. As soon as he met the founder of today's featured brand, he realized he certainly wanted to join forces in this winning business. And so he's a franchisee and a partner in this brand. And today's brand is Footprints Floors. And this is Bryan Knuth, who is the franchise development manager for Footprint Floors. Welcome, Bryan.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Lance.
Awesome. Well, I'm glad you're here. And the next gentleman on the panel today is the founder of this particular brand. He attended the Air Force Academy. And thank you for your service, sir. After serving his country and after graduation, he and his wife, Kelly, settled in Littleton, Colorado, started a family, 3 rambunctious girls and 2 big dogs later. Bryan noticed a big gap in the flooring industry, and he realized in the flooring industry in Denver, there was a highly inefficient and unscrupulous, it was sort of an unscrupulous and highly efficient industry. And he knew he can do better. And it was Bryan's calling to change this. So let's put the customer first, he said, and let's create an impeccable reputation in the flooring industry. Mission accomplished. All these years later, we're going to hear the whole story of how this got started. They are now the largest flooring contractor in the state of Colorado, and probably one of the largest in the world, in the United States for sure. And the franchise expansion is well underway. Well, and well underfoot as well. So welcome, Bryan Park, founder of Footprints Floors.
Hey, thanks for having me on. Excited to be here.
You got it, Bryan. Well, I'm super happy you guys are here. So let's dive into the stuff that I missed in your background. So let's take us through some of the other significant things that occurred in your backgrounds that took you into, both of you, into the franchise world, into the flooring world, and to where we are today with this amazing high growth brand.
I'll kick us off. Yeah, the paragraph that you read's the very abbreviated version. It makes me sound way better than I am. I got out of the Air Force. I served out my time. I enjoyed that for what it was, but looking to do something different in life and really didn't know what that was going to be. I was a history major in college, which means you don't have a job waiting for you. So I had to figure out something. Early 20s, and I wouldn't say that I came into the flooring industry with this grand plan of conquering the world and changing it all. That's always fun to say 15 years after the fact, but when you're going through it at the beginning, it's not so pretty. Really, it started out as just trying to feed my family. I was young, trying to find a job. Really, that I got into the industry, I had no, my parents weren't in construction. I was Mr. White Collar through and through, which has really served me well later on, but that's not necessarily how I got into the trades. I got in because we hired a flooring company. My wife and I had gone out to dinner, came home, and our puppies had eaten our carpet, like just shredded it. And we're like, oh, wow, okay, so we live on subfloor or we hire a flooring company. So our hand was forced. And at the same time, I was looking for a job. And I was watching the young guy install my floors. And I was like, how much do you make doing this? It's like, I don't know, 100 grand, 120 grand. I'm like, oh, cool. Do you think I could go to school at night while I'm installing floors? Because that was the original plan, was just kind of a filler to feed, my family. And well, at the time, it was just my wife and I. So yeah, started installing floors for that company. I was the customer turned crew to start. And really the next 2 or 3 years, I worked for that company and was figuring out that the trade was really backwards. There's zero technology and things behind closed doors, people saying, oh, the customer won't know about it. Just do that, cut that corner, do that. And it's a bad thing. It didn't ever sit right. I'm coming from an Air Force background where integrity is everything. Do what you say you're going to do, even if nobody's watching. that was my background. And even up to that point, I still wasn't, oh, I'm going to break off and start my own company. It was in '08 when the economy crashed. I was a manager for that business and they stopped paying everybody, all their employees. I went 6 months without a paycheck.
Jeez.
Living on credit cards, believing that they'll pay me back someday, which of course they didn't. November of '08, they let me go, sat me down at an Arby's of all places and didn't even buy me a roast beef sandwich or anything. I got fired at an Arby's in November of '08, entering into the winter, the worst economic crisis. At the same time, we had a 2-year-old. My wife was 8 months pregnant. We had 4 dogs. So not great timing. So I started, that was the landscape of Footprints Floors. I was 25 years old, young wife, young family, way too many pets, 800 square foot house, $30,000 in credit card debt, running a flooring company out of my garage.
So that's when we insert the adversity breeds opportunity quote. That was about all the adversity anybody can take.
Oh yeah, I had no other option. I walked neighborhoods at night, putting flyers on doors. We went 2 months without even doing a job because it's the middle of the winter, trying to launch a business, and just made it happen. And then I did floors for the next few years with my own hands. And it was mostly about, I need money. It's not, I want to conquer the industry like the paragraph says. It's, I need to feed my family.
So who taught you how to do floors? What was your apprenticeship like in that?
I started working for that previous company that stopped paying me.
Oh, that was the floor. Okay, got it.
So I learned how to do floors, although when my first day of training, I showed up and my trainer no-showed the day. So I kind of self-taught for the first little bit, but I got pretty good at it over time. I'm a pretty solid floor guy by now.
Awesome. Bryan, what about you?
As you mentioned, yeah, I kind of cut my teeth in the service business, working, climbing trees.
Yeah, you had some talents. You'd already worked with your hands.
Well, yeah, but kind of same timing as Bryan starting Footprints. I had a choice to make and kind of made that choice and got into the service business and watched it thrive under my feet, in '08 when the economy was down. And fast forward, I got an opportunity to help grow and develop a franchise development firm in 2012. Gosh, it's been a while now. And so I joined forces with my partners over there and we built a franchise development firm. And my biggest question to them was, what the heck could I do as an asset to this company? And they said, well, you've been in the trenches trying to run a small business. And I think you could broadcast a story of franchise support very well. And it served me well. So that's kind of a little bit of my background and how I got involved with franchise development. And then fast forward 2018, we met Mr. Park in our office and I was immediately attracted to the business and his story and his involvement of growing the business to where it is today. So fast forward a little bit there, I became an owner. It was 2019, 2020. I launched February 3rd of 2020 and fell on my face March 10th of 2020. And it's been awesome ever since.
Well, let's talk about the falling on your face part. What happened there?
COVID.
Yeah.
The uncertainty of being able to do estimates, but it was a week of uncertainty. It was very quickly deemed that we're an essential business. Customers are willing to let us in their property. If they're not, they're probably not going to hire us. We very quickly grew a business alongside of other franchise owners. So it was a very mild disruption or wave in the water.
Yeah, I thought it was pretty interesting with home service brands that there seemed to be that temporary freeze, if you will, when COVID first hit. People couldn't believe what was going on. So maybe the first 30 days, depending on what city you were in, nobody did anything. Nobody knew what to do. You certainly didn't want anybody in your house. But after all that, maybe after all of that actually sunk in, isn't that when the phones really started ringing, essentially, when people are like, well, if I'm going to be home, I might as well remodel things. Right.
We slowed down for like 2 or 3 weeks and then we were off to the races.
Exactly.
I think we had record months starting in April for like 14 consecutive months or something. It was just crazy.
Yeah. People are still talking about, well, what actually did well during COVID? And I answer it the other way. Well, what really didn't do well during COVID? So anyway, that's a phenomenal story. And as you guys both know, the story really helps people because, people are drawn in by hearing these wonderful stories and these success stories. So let's get to what is Footprints Floors? Because you're quite unique in the industry.
Well, we are quite unique, although I've never really felt like we were, but for some reason we just chose to do things a little differently. And I think that's really at the core of everything. That's why we've grown as fast as we have, is because we have done things a little bit differently. You know, on the surface, it's like, oh, you kind of look like other companies, but just our systems that we have in place, the overall model, it tweaks all of the old ways of doing things, which, by the way, those old ways of doing things are what I was trying to get away from. And just those tweaks have really made a very, very profitable, fun, successful business. So yeah, to summarize who we are, we're at the core of it, we're a contractor. We install sand and finish hardwood, we install tile, and we install LVP and LVT. And the way we're different is that we don't necessarily want to sell the material. So we're not a mobile showroom. There is no brick and mortar. We're not a storefront. We're laborers. We're a contractor. You call us to get your floors installed, and we can supply the flooring if we need to. We have access. You know, we're a huge company. We have lots of opportunity to sell floors, but we would actually prefer customers go purchase their own floors at a local showroom. We can steer people to local showrooms where we have good deals. For the most part, we just want to do the labor. It's pretty much how like a general contractor runs his business. He's not selling trim and windows. He tells you where to go buy it and then he puts it in. That's pretty much what we do.
And I know people love the simplicity of it. And, you know, Bryan, is that what you fell in love with now that you're a franchisee?
One of the things I fell in love with, absolutely. Yeah. Simplicity, non-emergency, you know, a lot of tools and infrastructure to support us with carrying out higher volume than we could on our own. But yeah, simplicity is what I think attracts a lot of folks to this. In fact, a lot of folks that have experience in, you know, P&L management and logistics and business management, they look at this and go, you got to be kidding me. There's more to it than this, right? No, that's it.
Bryan, while you're talking about all that, why don't you roll into the franchise process? You know, when you get a candidate, whether it's through a broker like me or an outside lead, talk about the process, because obviously people listening that are going to be interested in Footprints Floors want to understand what kind of process they're put through. I always tell people, when you're looking at a franchise, nobody's sliding your credit card on a call. It's a pretty rigorous process. You know, you have to like the brand, they have to like you. So why don't you describe that process a little bit?
Yeah, so we call it and believe it as a mutual discovery process. It's a mutual evaluation where we're going to get to know the franchise prospect or the candidate just as much as they're going to get to know us. We're going to approach it at a digestible pace where we add layers of information at the appropriate and digestible points. We're not going to just info dump. I'm not here to sell anybody and provide them with all the answers to their questions they may have on the first call. We want to approach those questions and those answers at the appropriate time. So we usually spend about 4 to 6 weeks going through this information, gathering information about their life experiences and their plans and their goals and their non-negotiables, all while we share ours, hoping that it's a mutual alignment. And the objective is to really set a firm expectation of what they're getting involved with, what it's going to cost, what success looks like as we describe it in Footprints Floors. That might not be successful to somebody. To us, here's what it is, and here's what the way we describe success. And so ultimately, we go through this mutual discovery process over the course of about 4 to 6 weeks. And it's at that point that candidates arrive at a good, confident decision. It's either a yes, or it's hey, it's a good business, I see it, but it's not for me. And that's the objective there. As we approach that decision, that's when they'll start to interact with the executive team and go through kind of final approval and interviews and some background checks and just some tools or filters that are in place to ensure that we're all off on a good starting platform here. But yeah, it's 4 to 6 weeks of evaluation and discovery, and it's really my role to help be a tour guide and provide all the answers or the directions to the answers that they need to make a confident decision.
I like that. The tour guide, Bryan, the tour guide. So the
That's right.
investment today, I know you have quite a few people joining or have joined, and maybe they only got one territory and they quickly are like, hey, I need a second territory here. This is fabulous. So what does a territory cost to get up and running in an average area today based on your franchise disclosure document?
Yeah, so I tell folks all in, you're going to be about $85,000 cash outlay. That's franchise fee, that's training and travel costs, that's soup to nuts, open doors. But I want to make sure you have accessibility to about another $25,000 of footprints floors budget. I say it that way. You've got your life budget or your life bucket. You got to keep being able to put food in the fridge and so forth. So we separate that. So if you look at the footprints floors capital outlay, it's 85 spent, but I hope you got another 20, 25 sitting there in reserves. And that's spent throughout the first 3 months of getting this up and going. And that's including marketing and so forth.
Pretty much in zero franchises exist that you come out of the gate just printing money. You have to kind of work a little bit first. Fair to say?
Oh yeah. It's pretty fast trajectory. And one of my attractions, you asked simplicity and so forth. Footprints Floors provides a very robust infrastructure on lead generation. Getting in front of a customer in the comfort of their living room is an art form. It's a game. It's challenging. And Footprints provides that to us as franchise owners, meaning when I come out of training tomorrow, I'm going to be walking into customers' living rooms because the franchisor has created that for me and they're good at it. So it's not this learning curve of trying to figure out every component to the business. Again, going back to the simplified aspect of this, I walk into a living room and I do what I've been trained to do, which is communicate with customers. So it doesn't print money immediately, but we're in front of the opportunities. It's ours to lose, as they say.
Yeah. Well, you jumped right into something great that I was going to ask about the ramp up. When you have franchisees, let's talk a little bit about validation. When you have prospects, candidates actually having conversations with franchisees, you're doing it in group calls. How do you do validation these days?
We do it in group calls, and that's largely because of the interest level we have right now. We have a very large pipeline and a lot of folks looking to speak with owners. And so out of respect of our owners' time, we try to limit that. So we do weekly calls. We have a library of about 100 recorded calls that consists of franchise validation calls as well as executive leadership calls. And we try to establish a good base level of knowledge. And then from there, if there's any one-on-one topics that we need to address, we'll respectfully engage them with our franchise owners and make a warm introduction.
No, and that obviously works well through the validation process. And you're a franchisee, and obviously it depends how you run the business. I mean, you do want active owners. This isn't an opportunity where you can be a semi-absentee owner. You can down the road once you're established and have a good foundation, but in the beginning, you definitely want active owners. What are you seeing as that ramp up time to where the owners are really starting to feel good and doing well? Is it 6 months? Is it a little longer?
Oddly enough, I'll say there's a difference between feeling good and doing well.
Yeah.
Good point. The business works. Customers hire us because we show up, not because we're awesome, because we're there, we're accountable. And that's the front end, right? So I'm not any good at floors and people are saying yes. And that happens for folks that are able to conduct a conversation and able to juggle things and, commit to customers, right? That's scary in and of itself. A customer saying yes, you've never carried out a floor, like meet them at that and get it done. So that happens right away. And then as franchise owners experience more and more of this, they become more capable, they become more comfortable in that arena, and they convert more of their customers into yeses. So I would say that if someone's ready to go get socially engaged with a customer and hold themselves accountable to delivering what they're selling the customer, the opportunities are there immediately.
Great.
But that's simple to say, it's scary.
Absolutely. So Bryan Park. So one thing I didn't cover yet is what really brought you into franchising? At what point when you were developing this, did you think, how did you know about franchising and that this was for you and the method for your expansion?
There was a few stages, I guess, along the way. I had zero desire to franchise from day one. That wasn't the plan. And it was really 3, 4, 5 years into running my business in Denver that I'd grown to a place where I was running 10 crews a day, driving around like a maniac, doing most of the sales. I had some staff going and we grew quickly, but we got into a place where I had a decision to make. I couldn't handle everything myself anymore. And the first step in our growth towards franchising was right then. This was maybe 10 years ago. I didn't like the idea of hiring employees and having them be the frontline contact for my customers. I've always been a big fan of the owners who cares the most, and he's probably the most talented as well. And that's really who needs to be in front of the customer. So it just lent itself well to this idea of having franchises. So The original plan was to break up Denver into little zones with mini owners that I wasn't calling franchisees. I was just 1099ing these guys.
Right.
And they were out doing estimates and doing their thing. And then that first year we went to file taxes, and my accountant's like, you had a fantastic year, but it's highly illegal what you're doing. You can't run these guys as a 1099. You need to either make them W-2 employees, or it kind of looks like you're running a franchise. I was like, I don't even know what that means. So that was step one, was learning what franchising was about way back then. And so we made a little franchise document to kind of govern the relationship with me and the other 4 guys in Denver, and ran that way for the next 5 years. We're wildly successful. But that whole time I was saying, I don't want to go out of state. I don't want to travel. I didn't know brokers existed. Sorry, no offense. I had no idea. I knew nothing. My idea of franchising was me traveling around the country at like trade shows or something, trying to recruit people, which sounded awful. About that time, so 2018, and this links back to Bryan Knuth's story, I ran into his company as we were kind of dabbling in this franchising stuff, and told him my story. He's like, this thing's going to be amazing. He and his business partners. And I'm like, I don't want to travel. I'm like, you don't need to travel. There's these broker guys. I'm like, oh, tell me about them. So that was, 2018. We decided to pull the trigger and go out of state, really, because I learned what the industry looked like, and finally decided that franchising might be a worthwhile venture. Launched in spring of 19 out of Colorado for the first time. And we've gone from 4 owners to 80 in the last 2.5 years.
How many locations right now?
168.
Unbelievable. And what percentage of those owners are multi-unit, multi-territory folks?
We average just over 2. We have 80 owners, 168 locations. So I think percentually, like more than half are multi-unit.
Yeah, that's great.
Sorry.
I absolutely love how you came to the realization that when you're selling franchises and you're finding other investors, so to speak, they're owners. So they have, if you find the right people, they have the right ownership mentality, hopefully, that you do. And it's fairly easy to figure that out. Although brands do make mistakes and sometimes can select the wrong people, which rolls into my next thought process. When you guys are talking to people, how do you know when somebody is definitely right for your brand? And how do you know on the flip side, man, this person's not going to work, and why?
I'll give that one to Bryan. He's the one talking to most of the prospects up front. I don't get to meet them until towards the end.
Well, hopefully, Mr. Park, you don't ever have to say, hey, Bryan, I don't know what you're thinking, but I don't like that guy, or I don't like that lady.
I only say that half the time. No.
Half the time. Okay.
Bryan's extremely good at his job. So no, I don't need to say it too often.
So Mr. Bryan, what are the traits really? What does it come down to? Who are you looking for? Who are you not looking for?
The model and the infrastructure and the team and the culture was very highly established before we started taking this national. It wasn't this question mark of what are we going to do? How are we going to support them? What do they need to do to be successful? The roles and the guardrails of what a franchise owner needs to stay within were very established when we started back in 2018. And what we've recognized is we're looking for somebody that can be socially engaged with customers, that can manage multiple things and be very task oriented, can be decisive and a problem solver, and someone that has emotional tolerance to deal with new things thrown at them on a regular basis. And so not a lot of, challenging or highly technical things. It's just, can you be composed? Can you get up and get after it? Can you leverage the resources around you? And can we communicate, right? Not just in good times when money's being made, but when times are tough, when we have a problem, when, hey, we need to think about where do we reallocate budgets because it's not working. And that means we wasted a little bit of money. It's not a good thing. It's not easy to swallow, but all of those things go into consideration as we go through this mutual investigation process. And that's a lot of what I ask of the prospects going through the process. Hey, tell me a story about this. Have you ever experienced that? And so that's one of the ways in which we kind of filter that understanding of someone's capabilities and commitment, so forth. But really the other way is through the validation calls. We call it a peer review process where they speak with other owners and they understand what other owners have experienced. The sales-centric individuals tend to take off a little bit faster in this business. The op-centric individuals, a little slower, more methodical pace of trajectory. And who do you liken yourself to? And they get, prospects get the opportunity to speak with our owners and understand who they liken themselves to, and then compare that against their trajectory and their sales volume and their stress management and all of that. So it's, it's us vetting and filtering, but it's largely the candidates vetting themselves and really starting to establish an understanding of what are their non-negotiables and can I see myself in this business? So it's mutual there where they're going to vet themselves out and say it's not right. And then we get to the point where they meet the executive team. The executive team's pretty hard to deal with. They're pretty hard to get along with. They run them through the ringer pretty hard and determine if they could all work together. But there's a lot of filters throughout the process. I think it's very easy. I think it's very cut and dry as long as the prospects we're working with are open and honest with themselves. It's going to come to surface if they can be successful in this business or not.
And what is the commonality? I know that you have people from all walks of life that become successful franchisees, but if you were going to look at the best, the top 10% of high performing franchisees today, is there anything in common at all in their backgrounds? Or are they just from all different places in their lives and as far as career choices prior to Footprints?
So it's easy to say this, like Bryan said, right? You read the bio and go, okay, 15 years later, it's easy to say this. So not knowing this until we arrived at this, it's not industry, it's not background, it's not skill sets. I think it's a cultural alignment that starts with wanting to serve others, wanting to do right by customers, wanting to do right by crews. I mean, we use subcontracted crews. In the world of construction, people say crews are terrible. They're right and wrong in the same breath. Left on their own, crews are not the easiest to work with. But if you're willing to serve your crews and provide with them, jobs and fair treatment and honest and continuous pay, you create this environment by which your flooring business grows and it becomes more successful, right? Crews want to show up for you. They want to do right by the customer. So it just really starts with our franchise owners wanting to do right by their customer, do right by their crews, do right by their community. Everything else falls in line. So yeah, no industry, not engineer versus salesperson, although sales is a necessary component to this business. But Bryan, I'll toss it to you, man.
Bryan, what do you see out there?
You took my answer, Bryan. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, it's all different walks of life, and there's guys that are doing amazing that I wouldn't have predicted, and then vice versa. It's interesting to see. So we're certainly figuring it out still, but I think it ties into what Bryan's saying with the customer service, others first mentality. And to expand on it a little bit is this thought of leadership. We're looking for leaders because in a lot of ways we're asking a successful franchisee, a franchise owner, I think they're successful because they're taking leadership of a customer's project. They almost take it upon themselves. Like, I want this thing to go wildly successful for your good, and I'm going to lead the way. And I think that's a trait that always served me well with my customers is I got this. You can trust me. You're going to pay me some money, but I'm going to take care of this thing and you're going to love it in the end. Because that's at the end of the day what a customer wants. Just, I don't want to know everything there is to know about flooring. Just take it. Let me trust you. Don't be weird. Like, I want to enjoy my conversations with you and then just go. I think it stems from a leadership and an ownership for the customer, but then also an ownership for the crew. I've always seen them as my crews. These are my guys. I'm going to take care of them. I'm going to buy them food and remember their birthdays and their kids' names and invest in them emotionally. And I think those aren't traits that they're very difficult traits to identify in other people, and they're not real common traits. But I think those are things that lend themselves well to being successful and just in construction in general. Just own it. And part of that too is do what you say you're going to do. Show up, return calls. If you say you're going to call them back tomorrow, call them back tomorrow. That would tie in. It's the leadership and integrity. Those two.
I love it. So let's talk about technology. What do you do to sort of enhance a franchisee's life, so to speak? So many mom and pops, non-franchises, they don't really communicate. They don't talk to their customers maybe as they should, communicate what's going on. What do you have in the way of technology? Maybe you talk about marketing and technology all in general, as you said earlier, Bryan, Kay. There's a lot you do to get into people's living rooms and start getting people leads, a quick ramp up, et cetera. So Bryan Park, why don't you kick it off with technology, marketing?
Yeah, this is really where we shine. And this is one of the huge advantages of joining a franchise model with so much volume. We can invest in cool stuff that our competition can't possibly invest in. The first thing, and one of our biggest advantages, is we have an entire call center that has software at their fingertips. So when we put out a lot of marketing dollars that go out, internet, print marketing, you name it, these phone calls start coming in, and a lot of the phone calls they funnel right into our system automatically, these emails, and we're emailing and texting the customer within seconds of receiving this information.
I love
So,
it.
so a homeowner's already gotten pinged 4 times in 2 minutes from once they submitted the request. And that's the exact opposite of what's common in this industry. Typically, you're calling the tile setter, right? And he's
Yep.
like, I'm busy. Call me back tomorrow, or
Exactly. I'm laughing because when we remodeled our house, that's kind of what we went through. And then you could hold your breath and hope that somebody actually even calls you back the next day.
Oh, they never do. So our call center is fantastic. These guys make life so much easier. They're just putting estimates on our owners' schedules for them. So each day you wake up as an owner, hey, I've got 4 appointments this afternoon. Good deal. And that's really where their job starts, is driving to that estimate and then taking over. That technology is huge for us. That system that we use, though, they do their bids and their work orders, everything in that system all the way through. It's very easy on everybody. That system has built-in financing for our homeowners, ACH payments, credit cards. It's all just in one system. It makes franchise owners' lives a lot easier.
Incredible. Let's talk numbers. I'm laughing again because, when I present your brand to candidates, it's kind of a no-brainer. It's a low-cost investment. If they fit your, preferably sales ability, because I know that helps you ramp up quicker. Maybe they just have the ops ability and they're going to hire somebody that they know that's great in sales. But let's talk about the numbers. What can you share? For those of you out there playing at home and listening, the franchise disclosure document has 23 items, and most brands, or many brands, do fill in their item 19, which is the earnings claim, and Footprints Floors has certainly a very detailed earnings claim. So which Bryan would like to share some of those highlights?
Yeah, I'll jump in on that one. It's tough to get it all in and quantify all the numbers behind it in a short stint. But as franchise candidates go through the process, we'll paint a picture on what it looks like to build a $500,000 business, meaning how much time does it take of you? How much budgets are you going to need to insert? Is it going to crush your family life, your work-life balance? And what we see is franchise owners are very capable of getting to a $500,000 business at a 25, 26, 27% net. And that's all substantiated, all within the hours of Monday through Friday, 8 to 5, non-emergent. So that's a glimpse of it. Yeah, we go through a very robust model as we work through the validation process.
Yeah, I can't imagine people can possibly ask for more, and that still gives a substantial ROI. And there's some other numbers that people definitely want to see in there. Obviously, you can't divulge everything right here in this phone call. Mm-hmm. What do we not cover today, gentlemen, that you'd like to cover that people need to know? Other than, boy, we've given a lot of great reasons for people to reach out to me so I can connect them to you. What do we miss?
I think a big one, I haven't really talked about this. The money's fantastic. Construction in general pays very well, but maybe my single most favorite part of my job, because in a lot of ways, I'm asking franchise owners to do the exact same thing that I've done for the last 15 years of my life. I'm a contractor. I do estimates. I've done over 10,000 estimates. I've done millions and millions of dollars of job site management.
10,000 estimates. You look pretty damn young.
I've done a lot of estimates. It's been 15 years of, we do a lot of estimates. I think last year we did almost 50,000 estimates nationally in 1 year. So there's a lot. What I love about my job is the flexibility. I set my own schedule. I block things off. I'm in Florida right now. I don't live in Florida, but I'm doing a podcast from Florida. These are not native Colorado trees here. Yeah, it's fun. So as a franchise owner, you got to take Friday, off. You want to go skiing for the weekend or whatever, block it off. It's your schedule. It's your business. A lot of our guys don't start doing estimates till the afternoon. They take the mornings off so they can catch up on computer work, and it's extremely flexible. And we, as a management team, we don't really see our role as the franchisor as a policing role. I'm the worst micromanager in terms of I don't do it. I'm a big picture person. I don't want to manage these guys. I want them to manage themselves. So we really see our role as that of support. We want to come alongside and help in any way we can. It's, servant-hearted leadership, not do what I say. So I think our culture and the flexibility I'd put it against any brand out there. I think we're pretty awesome in those two in that regard.
Awesome. Mr. Knuth.
I'll emphasize you and the strength that you bring to candidates as they go through the evaluation process, leaning and leveraging your accessibility to what's out there, what businesses look like, what you're going to need to put in to get these outcomes, from a high level overview. But I would support that franchise candidates or candidates thinking about making a life change, spend time with you and understand what's out there, leaning on you with Q&A to establish what's right for them. Footprints isn't for everybody. And my objective is to help folks learn about footprints, help them learn about themselves, and hopefully take that knowledge back to you for a second round or maybe even a third round so that they make the right placement. I hope everybody wild success and that it happens immediately the second you turn on the lights, but business ownership is not that. It's what are you going to do 8, 10, 12, 15 years from now, and are you going to enjoy it enough to stick with it for 15 years? So to me, I would say leveraging you as an asset to help them find the right fit.
Yeah, and boy, it's easy to talk about Footprints floors because I love you guys, and keep up the great work. And thank you so much, both Bryan and Bryan, for being here. I'll see you next time. All right.
Thanks, Lance.
Thank you.
Take care. Thank you very much for listening today. Please like, follow, and subscribe. This is Lance Graulich. Until next time.